Oh, hey. Hi. It's been a while, hasn't it? What a summer it's been, huh? I've been out on this newfound adventure after being tricked.
So once you die, you're free to explore.
Finally went to Valisthea, met some cool people there, and I've been getting Luma'd constantly, and I mean non-stop. Not only that, Luma has officially become a terrorist organization by blocking us access to objective, unbiased information at a national level through the website poweroutage.us. And having merged with the new terrorist on the block, MelleniumK, well, that's it for us. They won. And then people get mad at me when I say fuck Luma. I don't get it either. Fuck Luma and fuck MelleniumK. Overarching narrative and real-world events that have destroyed my mental health and caused me immense anxiety aside, I'm gonna do it. I'm going to do something I promised to never do as part of the MCU. Something I promised to never partake in again. I've been having these weird thoughts lately. Like, is any of this real? You heard that right. In this, the first of about 6 paralogs to come, I will be discussing, in order,
It's upside down.
I know. I don't dislike Kingdom Hearts, really, I don't. They're fun enough if you just play them and move on. It's when you try to understand the plot that things tend to become a little bit toxic.
But that's some low-hanging fruit, isn't it?
It is jarring coming back to this game knowing pretty much everything else that happens, and practically none of it is relevant here.
Before I played Kingdom Hearts, I always thought it was a Disney game first, with some OCs along the way. And while that isn't entirely incorrect, especially with this game, you'll quickly notice that the Disney elements are more of a backdrop for the actual plot.
And the game starts in this mysterious stained glass world, and you're told to choose between a sword, a shield, and a wand. I chose the wand to have that extra MP to heal because I'm bad at video games, and when you're told to choose one to drop, I dropped the shield because
who even needs defense?
And then, oh no, it's Final Fantasy X.
I don't like Final Fantasy X. Then again, I think Endwalker is as bad as A Realm Reborn, so what do I know?
What's most important to you?
Friendship!
What are you afraid of?
Final Fantasy X.
What do you want out of life?
To forget Final Fantasy X.
After returning to the stained glass world and fighting him in what is a combat tutorial, we wake up on the Destiny Islands, a location you pretty much never return to at any point in any other game. And it's exactly what it sounds like, a generic early 2000s island setting that, as I said with Chrono Cross, never does it for me.
Magical floating islands also don't do it for me. Did you hear that? Oh, right, she's gone.
That is something that stands for the rest of the game, by the way. It is overwhelmingly 2000s.
The 2000s were a mistake. Why did Square make 3 games back-to-back with the same setting?
Do I need to introduce the characters?
You all know them, right? I mean, if you're watching this, you at least know the basics, right?
Sora is the last character added to Smash, Riku is the best Nopon, and Kairi is also there. After being introduced to this new, to-become-confusing world, Kairi has you do a fetch quest and then another. Jesus, Kairi, just give me a grocery list, why don't you? And then Luma and MelleniumK descend upon the Destiny Islands, destroying everything in their wake.
Okay. That one was one too far. I apologize to the Heartless. You will never be as evil as Luma and Genera PR. I was young. I didn't know the impact my words would have on others.
This event is the first part of the thing that makes me incredibly toxic about Kingdom Hearts, but more on that later. It's here where the basic premise of the game is set, the search for Riku and Kairi. Sora then finds himself in Traverse Town and he meets the other two main party members, Gladiolus and Prompto. I mean Saz and Snow. I mean Shadow and Setzer. I mean...
That is enough Tetsuya Nomura for one day.
Donald is your mage and Goofy is your tank, and they'll be with you for the rest of the game. Well, most of it. Though, I'm not really going to go into most of the other Disney characters because, I don't know, I'm lazy or something. Most of them are near flawlessly depicted here. They did a good job giving most of these beloved characters new life in, early 2000s 3D, but still.
Oh, you speak English?
Happens every time. Yes, I can speak English, and I can also tie my own shoelaces.
It's not just Disney characters that appear here though. You also have a handful of Final Fantasy characters, from 7 and 8 of course.
Because Tetsuya Nomura.
The first one you meet is Sid, who's in charge of the accessory shop, and then there's Squall, who acts as a sort of boss fight. And I got rid of the Firaga stack junction to his strength, so he couldn't even come close to damaging me. Yuffie is here too, and Aerith, and just a couple more later on. It's great seeing these characters here with voice acting. Even though they're not exactly relevant or important at all, it's still exciting to see them because I love Final Fantasy. After a while, you finally get access to the two first Disney worlds, Wonderland and Olympus. Each world is ostensibly a level of sorts with its own contained plotline, generally paralleling its respective movie and a boss at the end. Some of the worlds you have to return to later on, and most of them are one-offs. Sometimes you'll see these different colored symbols on the floor. These are Trinity marks. These Trinity marks are places where Sora, Donald, and Goofy can come together and do different level Trinities, which can give you items or open new areas, usually with some comedic effect.
It's how you get to each world that stands as arguably my least favorite part of this or any other Kingdom Hearts game, the Gummy Ship.
Every time you travel between worlds, you have to go through this Star Fox-like game mode on your Gummy Ship, a spaceship that you're supposed to build on your own with these gummy pieces that you can buy, find, or get as story progression. And there's a lot of them. So it's very easy to just go wild with it and make something very fast or very powerful. Or nothing at all. I don't and never have cared for anything related to the Gummy Ship in any Kingdom Hearts game. But here's the thing. Those first few times you travel to other worlds, you have to do each route's respective mission every time. Ergo, to and from. So if you don't know how to progress and you want to go back and try another world, have fun redoing the Gummy Ship missions. Want to go to the next world over? Have fun redoing the Gummy Ship mission. Want to go to Olympus while you're in Wonderland? Have fun doing those two Gummy Ship missions again.
It is in fact as tiring as it sounds.
After a while, you do get a warp piece, which lets you skip Gummy Ship missions, which is a godsend, but you still need to do them the first time you travel to a new world, so you aren't exactly out of the woods. It really is just bothersome to deal with in the early game. I know a lot of people like the Gummy Ship, and I get it, it's just not for me. I find dealing with it tedious, repetitive, and slow. Similar to dealing with Luma and Genera PR. They're awful, we get Luma every day, and it's a minimum 3-hour wait time singularly because they are incompetent.
Fuck Luma and fuck Genera PR.
Anyway, once you do your first of many Gummy Ship missions, you have a choice. Either go to Olympus, the Hercules world, which appears in every game in the series except Dungeons and Dragons and Diners and Drive-Ins and Dives, by the way, or Wonderland. Both are pretty bad. Olympus is just a Colosseum type level with a bunch of fights back to back. Wonderland is then basically a maze where the rooms like to move around and rotate. It's Alice in Wonderland, so it's meant to be confusing. You shrink, you grow, you fight whatever this thing is, which leads me to the following point. Most of the enemies you'll face in the game are not Disney ones, but the Heartless. These creatures related to Mr. Game & Watch that come in many shapes and sizes, and don't exactly pose much of a threat. These encounters are the equivalent of random battles in every other game. However, the varied kinds of Heartless keep each encounter from being boring. Even though you fight most of them the same way you would everything else, some of them need to be attacked differently, so it's a nice change of pace. It does eventually get a little bit repetitive, like when you're going back and forth, because many times these worlds aren't exactly clear on which way is forward. While there are a lot of different kinds of Heartless per encounter, they aren't randomized. So any given area at any given point will always have the exact same encounters in the exact same positions. There are a few exceptions of some areas that sometimes spawn enemies, or sometimes they spawn these mushroom guys, but for the most part, it's the same waves of enemies. Each one you take down then gives you experience, of course, but also a good amount of these drops. Green ones are health, bubbles are magic, and yellow ones are money, so it makes grinding a bit less annoying since you don't always need to rush back and heal or recover magic after a small handful of fights, because you can recover a bit after taking down enemies.
The most interesting thing about the Heartless, though, is that there's more kinds of them than there are employees in Luma Energy and Genera PR combined. F*** Luma and f*** Genera PR.
Then there's the bosses, ranging from actual Disney and Final Fantasy characters to different kinds of Heartless, like him. He's in every game. Or whatever this thing is, or this annoying... I hate him so much. Or the worst boss by far. More on her later.
Overall, I like the bosses in this game, with that one exception. None of them stand out as unfair or extremely difficult. Instead, they add a good level of challenge, which, for the most part, the rest of the game doesn't have. I don't say that in a bad way, though.
The way Kingdom Hearts sets itself apart from most other Square RPGs is that there is no separation between exploration and combat, like say in a Final Fantasy game when you're exploring a dungeon and then you enter a battle. Instead, you're almost always in combat, mechanically speaking. In most places, you can always swing your Keyblade or cast magic regardless of there being enemies present, or even being programmed in that area. When enemies do show up though, you have not as many options for combat as you would think, especially looking back after playing every game in the series. If you've seen Kingdom Hearts combat, you would probably imagine quick movements, flashy animations, and just random things happening on screen that your brain can't process quick enough, and it isn't wrong. It's just not present in this game. The combat is very slow.
It's understandable, right? It's the first game in the series. But my god, does it take some getting used to.
Even though this is by definition an action RPG, it technically isn't, because spamming X doesn't actually attack directly. Instead, it chooses the attack option from the menu at the bottom left. So it's not like Final Fantasy VII Remake or 16, where Square swings the sword. Pressing X here chooses the option to swing the Keyblade. It doesn't feel as weird as I'm making it out to be though. The default option is attack, so it feels natural to attack by just pressing X. Though, when I realized the separation between choosing to swing the Keyblade and the Keyblade actually swinging, it created this dissonance in my head. I don't know exactly how to explain it. Anyway, your main form of attack is a 3-hit combo that is very slow. After the last hit connects, smaller enemies are launched. You also have an aerial combo that is pretty much the best form of attack. And if the enemy is in the air or the target is taller or above you, Sora will automatically jump to begin the combo, or you can jump on your own and attack. You can also use magic at the expense of MP, recharged with ethers or through physical attacks. Fire seeks the target, for example, Thunder is an AoE, Arrow is a shield, and the most useful spell in the game, and of course, Cure. Up to 3 of these can be assigned to the L1 shortcut menu and then used with the face buttons. Enemies don't really have these complex attack patterns you need to memorize like in a bullshit Souls game, with the exception of a few fights. Most of the time you just move forward, attack, and dodge some very clearly telegraphed attacks. That's not to say the game is a cakewalk. Some fights do get pretty challenging, especially early on when you don't have much in your arsenal. And that's where abilities and keychains come in. Abilities are a sort of equipment that alter the way combat flows. Sora, like Goofy and Donald, can equip abilities that do different attacks, like Cloud's lunge attack, add another swing to your aerial combo, or this AoE that triggers with a third attack on the ground combo, making it actually worthwhile to attack on foot. These abilities shouldn't be treated as optional, though they are integral to understanding the game's combat. But these aren't just different attacks, they also change the way you interact with enemies and the environment. The most useful ability, just in general, is Scan, which shows you the enemy HP. And then there's Dodge, High Jump, Float. I dare you to guess what those do. Treasure Magnet brings enemy drops within a set radius to you. There's a lot of abilities.
Almost as many as all the cases of load shedding we've had since Genera PR came in, leaving around 130,000 homes in the dark almost every night, purely because Luma Energy and Genera PR are incompetent. Fuck Luma and fuck Genera PR.
Keychains then serve as weapon upgrades for the Keyblade, making your attack stronger and or increasing your MP. And the actual design changes based on whatever world you got it from. It's fascinating how they got each Keyblade design to perfectly represent the world they came from. I usually play Kingdom Key only as an arbitrary challenge and because I prefer it aesthetically, but for the sake of recording, I tried to use as many as possible to make the footage look more interesting. Even though Goofy and Donald are your party members, you can never control them or any other temporary party member, though I make it a point not to use any of those regardless. The only one I do use is Aladdin, because he's a salmon. They're all AI based, which can be altered, but they're not exactly helpful at any point.
Almost like you, aren't they? It really feels like something's missing, doesn't it? I don't dislike the combat in this game. It's slow, it's clunky, it's definitely showing its age, but it isn't bad, it's fun enough. The camera, however, is another story.
The camera is atrocious. It's the worst thing in the game by far. It is as painful as living with the curse that is the Luma Energy and Genera PR coalition.
Fuck Luma and fuck Genera PR.
The camera fights against you at all times. It is the real and toughest antagonist of this game, not the Heartless. It just doesn't work. It doesn't feel like the camera movement in, every other game. Instead, it feels more like steering a boat, but the boat is made of lead. You push the stick in the direction you want, and you have to wait for the camera to actually move, and once it does move, it moves so fast you'll always oversteer.
It's just the camera! Why does it matter if it's not that good?
Because this is an action RPG where you're always fighting a lot of enemies that move around in every direction. So it's near impossible to keep track of them even when locked on, but you're still expected to do so. Not only do you have a lot of enemies moving around faster than something fast, you constantly have a bunch of enemies moving that fast in the smallest of areas. Worlds in this game aren't very vast, usually a handful of interconnected rooms, but so many of these rooms are more cramped than an airplane toilet. Even if you want to steer the camera, it collides with the walls, blocking it entirely or moving it in weird ways. And then you realize there's some of these overly cramped rooms that have limited camera movement, making the whole situation even worse because not only does the camera not move the way you want it, it'll still move on its own following Sora. And then you realize, after you realize the last thing, that some rooms have completely restricted camera movement. only following Sora's position, so it's easy to get vertigo because it flips around and you have no semblance of keeping track of your position, making it even harder to find your way around when it isn't easy to do so in the first place. That is the biggest problem with the game in my opinion, the camera. It is shocking, the delay between pushing the stick and the camera actually moving.
If you've played the game before, you'll understand what I mean, but if you haven't, I mean, what are you waiting for? The entire series costs less than 3's DLC.
As for the rest of the worlds, well, once you're done with the Tarzan world, the Deep Jungle, which is one of the worst ones by the way,
Also one of the worst Disney movies,
you go back to Traverse Town and Riku is there, but he thinks we replaced him with Donald and Goofy because...
You see, it's just as I told you. While you toiled away trying to find your dear friend, he quite simply replaced you with some new companion.
gaslighting.
Evidently. Now he values them far more than he does you.
Gaslighting.
Luma has additional crews ready to respond to possible service interruptions in order to restore service as quickly and safely as possible.
Gaslighting.
Since we arrived on July 1st, 2023, we have given it our 100% to be able to provide Puerto Rico the excellent service it deserves. We know there have been and will be circumstances beyond our control, but we will always strive to resolve them as quickly as possible. We have a genuine commitment to our people and pushing our island forward.
Gaslighting.
Riku siding with Maleficent here is the basis for his arc in the overall series, because he fell through the darkness through no real fault of his own. The next world is also one of the worst ones. Agrabah from Aladdin, followed by Monstro from Pinocchio, Neverland from Peter Pan, and
Out of the entire Kingdom Hearts series, Kingdom Hearts 1 has the highest concentration of bad worlds. But it also has the one singular worst world.
one so bad, it ruined its respective IP in future games. So many other worlds are bad, but this one is something else. Something menacing. Something that makes you feel unsafe. This is the worst damn world in the entire Kingdom Hearts series, and I don't care what anyone says. Olympus is boring and overused. Wonderland, confusing. Agrabah, too cramped. Monstro, a tight maze you can't even make your way around in. Atlantica is something else. I don't mind the underwater movement, you get used to it, eventually. It's the map, the combat, and her I have a problem with. I can never make my way around this world. I never know which way is forward. Even when I had at least a basic idea of where to go, I spent more time going in circles than I'd like to admit, because I couldn't find anything. And do you remember how slow the on-foot 3-hit combo was? But you always had the aerial combo to be able to play the game. Not here, you only do the 3-hit ground combo. Or a water combo. And you can't dodge roll either, so when enemies are launched forward, you need to swim at them slower than you attack if you want to take them down. And then Ursula. This is the worst fight in the game. Both phases, with her pretending to be a Beyblade and then her trying to eat you.
I am dumbfounded at how much my perception of this game had changed. When I first played it, I always thought Tarzan was the worst, Monstro was the worst. They're not good, but they're not painful. Atlantica is painful from start to end, and it never lets up. Even though I firmly believe Kingdom Hearts 1 has the highest concentration of bad worlds, it also has what is arguably my favorite in the entire series. And it just so happens to be my favorite movie of all time.
Halloween Town is my favorite world in the entire series, bar none. It's not the best, it's short, but my god, it's my favorite.
I'll admit to some bias when it comes to this, but I don't care.
Being able to pull down the chain and hear the scream, seeing the fountain Jack emerges from, being able to play with Jack, the hill, oh my god, the hill. Being able to climb it is enough to make me cry. Oogie Boogie's fight is great fun, both of them. The main party being given these redesigns to fit in, the textures on everything matching the movie. I love this. I love this. All of it. The last world on this list is arguably the best one in Kingdom Hearts 1, Hollow Bastion, another one original to the series. At the top of this waterfall area here is Riku, but because he took the Keyblade, somehow,
Keyblade Law wasn't invented yet, I guess.
Donald and Goofy choose to follow Riku instead, betraying Sora harder than every ex-Puerto Rican that became part of Luma Energy or Genera PR betrayed their country and their people.
Do I really need to say it?
Riku really does take away the Keyblade, so all you have is this wooden sword from the start of the game, which, might I remind you, can't harm Heartless, so you're fully dependent on Beast here to attack. Just for a little bit though, next room over, Riku's there, Goofy and Donald ditch Riku and you get the Keyblade back. There's 3 bosses for now in Hollow Bastion, Maleficent, Loptus, and finally Riku, whom I absolutely cheesed with Ars Arcanum. No shame. Once you're done, Sora opens his heart, and this is what makes me most toxic.
When he did that, he created Naminé because Kairi's heart was inside his, but Ventus's heart was also inside his. So when he created Roxas, he's not Sora's nobody, he's Ventus's nobody because they look the same and his heart was inside Sora's. And if he's not, I need a break.
Anyway, Sora becomes a Heartless himself, and he runs like me when a new Zelda game comes out. This part is a little bit slow, but it's still good because no other game has replicated it, until Sora comes back through the power of hugs.
Heartless Law wasn't invented yet, I guess.
The keyhole wasn't available, so after returning to Traverse Town one last time, you take the wormhole over to Hollow Bastion again to close it for good. And now it's time for the actual last world, the end of the world, aka every single day over the last 7 years. And this world sucks. It is padded out beyond belief, and it has this strange, unexpected difficulty spike just out of absolutely nowhere. You fight the same boss way too many times, you go through room after room filled with too many enemies, the strongest you've faced so far barring any bosses. But it's how many times you're forced to fight that is the problem. Keep in mind, I said forced. Most other enemy encounters in the game you can just walk past or run away from. These ones, you can't. By the end, you're literally thrown in a room with I don't even know how many waves of enemies, and it's just tedious. You do make it out eventually, ending up where it all started, the Destiny Islands, where we fight Ansem.
Oh, I forgot to talk about him. He's the bad guy, he likes to make reports, and he's not as important as you think he is.
You fight him on the beach, you fight him again, and keep in mind he charges 5 times, and then he takes a page out of X-Death's book and becomes something I can't explain. A boatman? And this fight is also padded out beyond beliefs. Guess it's a pattern. I had completely forgotten about this final fight somehow. It's impressive design-wise, sure, but it feels so out of place compared to every other final boss that I just don't like it that much. You take down Ansem, then some barnacles, then the boat face, and then the boat heart, and then Ansem one last time. After a while, 15 minutes or so, it goes down, and with that, Kingdom Hearts is actually over. The first one anyway. Mickey shows up on the other side of the door without a shirt on for actual lore reasons, yes, this is true, and Riku helps close the door from the other side. Kairi returns to the Destiny Islands, and Sora sticks around with Donald and Goofy, running after Pluto, who has a letter from the king leading into the worst game in the series. And that's it.
I know a lot of what I said can come off as a negative, but I really don't mean it like that. Kingdom Hearts 1, even though it is showing its age, is still fun to play. It's good at what it does, even though the camera is horrendous and the padding at the end can get kind of horrendous as well. It is a little bit weird though, seeing this early stage of the story, knowing how nonsensical it gets. Almost as nonsensical as the idea that Roxas is Sora's nobody because he's clearly Ventus's nobody because he made Naminé when he opened... Well, I guess it's time I head back home, huh? There's still one more thing I need to do, but somebody has to lead the fight against... Oh, what the hell? There's so many of them. Maldita sea Luma y maldita sea Genera PR. Piece of magicite. A fish? What do you mean? I've never met you before. What power? I don't have it anymore. I threw it away after the disaster that was Chapter 6. How did you know? That power, will it help me fight Luma and Genera? Okay, I choose that one. Yeah, well, how about that one? I am. Regardless of warnings, the future doesn't scare me at all. I don't know what I was expecting, but it doesn't surprise me in the least. Well, I said I'd talk about it, so let's get to it.